Hi there, viewers. Today I'm joining a conversation with Teresa Pearsall Young, the author of Seed, Trees, Branches, and Leaf, and quite a lot of other books that she has authored. And it's a pleasure to have Teresa featured on P English Literature today. Welcome on the show, Teresa.
Thank you so much for having me.
Yeah, it's a pleasure to have you on P English Literature. It's quite a joy to have you here.
Thank you so much. It's a
Yeah,
joy to be here.
yeah. So, Teresa, could you tell us about your book, Seed, Trees, Branches, and Leaf? How does this book come about? I've read it and it's quite amazing to me, and I'm quite curious to know what inspired you to write Seed, Trees, Branches, and Leaves.
Okay, sure. Well, Seeds, Trees, Branches, and Leaves is a book compilation of poetry and stoetries. And stoetries comes from that is actually a story written in prose or poetry. So, there's several different types of poems in the book,
Hmm.
but they are poems that I started writing after I gave my life to Christ. It was a new beginning for me,
Hmm.
and I always had writing in me, so I always liked to write. But I started just writing about different things that I had gone through
Hmm.
before I learned about Christ, before I learned the word, before I started experiencing life changing moments, just because I had given my life to Him and everything was new to me.
Hmm.
So I had gone through some things prior to that time. And when I started writing about it, it was a form of release for
Hmm.
me. Now, at that time, I didn't have an idea that I was actually going to publish this in a book. It was a way of releasing some of the inner hurts, inner pains that I had, that I experienced, um, thinking about what I went through, thinking about the wow moments like, boy, I really went through that. And so the poems were collected from over the years. It's like it's a span of years that the poems that I've gathered within the poems.
Hmm.
But when I finally felt comfortable enough to publish, sometimes you're reluctant to step out,
Yeah.
and then you want to trust. I had so much literature, so many poems, so many different types of writings.
Hmm.
And then it was like, okay, well, who do I go to with this? And then publishers, you also have to be careful, when you're who you're signing up with.
Absolutely.
You also need to make sure you understand the red tape as well for a minute, because it was a lot of different red tape. And it took a
Absolutely.
minute before I actually was introduced to someone who I felt I could really trust with my writing, who would do right by me, you
Hmm.
know, so to make sure that I understood what was going on.
Absolutely.
So when I did finally come upon the publisher, my publisher's name is Story Corner Publishing, and I actually felt comfortable. Someone introduced me because they had actually went with that publisher, so I did feel comfortable. I did learn some things, and so here we are. As I gathered the information to put in the book,
Hmm.
once I started categorizing everything, I realized that I had a story.
Hmm.
So, there were some things that were for certain times of my life, but then also you could see the progression. You could see the journey. You could see the lowest of my lows,
Hmm.
but you could see where I met Christ, and I'll call that period before and after him.
Mm,
So you could see the change, how he changed me. He changed my mind. He changed my way of thinking. He changed the way that I thought about myself. He changed who I realized that I should be
mm,
as according to the word of God. So, I've been pulling everything together. It made me laugh, it made me cry, it made me proud. Some moments I weren't so proud of, but I still shared.
mm,
So when it finally came together, I realized I really had something there. So that was the um, that was the beginning of me being a published author. I do actually have another book that we could talk about that a little bit later. But Seeds, Trees, Branches, and Leaves is my baby
mm.
that was finally birthed.
Oh, wow. That's quite amazing because I can actually relate to some of the things you talked about in the book while I read through it. I found it very deep, very thought-provoking, and most of the things are quite philosophical, and it's a look into the life of many people out there today. And Oxford would love to make this comment towards the ending part of the book. I think there's a story, a play at the ending part, the play of Angel and her husband, Demon, where she's been tormented and faced quite a lot of abuse in her marriage, relationship, emotional abuse, and until she eventually find freedom and help through the word of God, and she apply those techniques that she has learned. That alongside with other poems. I'm particularly intrigued with your level of lyrics, the way you and most of your poems actually rhymes, and I was like, this is amazing. These are lovely words. And that actually reminded me of a poem titled God is 24/7. I particularly love that one. It's quite satirical in nature,
Yeah,
a bit humorous, but true. And there are a lot of them, I'm just saying the ones I can remember. There are lots of poems there that
hmm
really peak with me, speak to me, and addresses quite a lot of themes that I can relate to personally. So I would say thank you so much for writing a brilliant book as that. I want
thank
to
you
ask,
so much.
yeah.
One of the things that I received as feedback from others when they did read the book,
Mm,
they would tell me, "Wow, I see me
mm,
in these poems. I see me in some of these stories." And where some folks may not want to share what they went through, but I actually, by sharing my own story, may have shared their story too.
absolutely.
It's relatable, you
Yeah,
know. Our walks are different, but in many ways the same.
yeah. Yeah, great one. Thank you so much. Now, I also want to ask you, Teresa, you also have another book titled From the Root to the Fruit, Becoming a Tree of Righteousness. I would love you to, without giving much information away, I'd love you to give us a sneak of what you would expect picking up the book.
Ah, okay. Well, from the roots to the fruits, becoming a tree of righteousness it actually complements the first book, Seeds, Trees, Branches, and Leaves,
Okay.
and it's a continuation of the journey.
Oh, wow.
From this point, I am saved, but also still experiencing things. And many people think that, once you give your life to Christ, that's it. Everything is going to be peaches and cream. Life is going to be better all the way
Mm,
around. You're not going to go through anything. Well, that's not true.
mm,
It's that you're experiencing life with Christ and with the word, and what you learn is that you learn how to live knowing him.
yeah,
You learn how to handle things better knowing him.
yeah,
You may still make some mistakes, but having him in your life, you learn how to pray. You know how to pray. Sometimes you're gonna, not purposely, but you may be disobedient of what God tells you to do,
mm,
what He tells you should do, because in many instances, we want God, but we still want God to agree with what we want.
Mm.
We want our life to be better, but there's some things that we still want God to say, "Oh, it's okay if you do that." You know, as I say, some of us want our own personal Jesus. So, okay, God, I'll give up everything as long as I can keep this little thing right here.
Oh,
You
wow.
know, and that's not, God is not agreeing to that. Is no compromise with him.
Mm,
He's not saying you can straddle the fence. He's not saying you can have 75% into him and 25% still searching the enemy.
mm,
Um, and we have to learn that, because sometimes we want to make things happen and then say that God said it, and
mm,
I tell people, it's like, folks need to stop lying on God. He didn't say
mm.
that. He didn't
Absolutely.
tell you to do that.
Yeah.
Many times I know I've done something that, and when I go back and think on it, it's like, God didn't tell me to do that.
Mm,
I
yeah.
did it anyway. And he's going to let you make your mistakes. If you insist on, having a thing, doing a thing, even though you may have received confirmation from him that it's not correct,
Mm,
he's not going to stop you. He's going to let you go ahead and do whatever it is that you're doing. And then when you come back to him, to try to correct what you
mm,
created, you
absolutely.
know, and, you'll feel that, conviction. You'll feel that I should have listened in the first place,
Absolutely.
and so so with from the roots to the fruits, it really kind of talks about some of those scenarios. Even knowing Christ, I still had to take a deeper look at myself.
Mm,
I still had to be corrected on some things.
absolutely.
I still really needed to delve deep into the word to understand what the word says about who I am supposed to be in
Mm,
Christ.
mm. Wow. I love your answers to these questions, and your book are very deep, actually. I am very intrigued and I'm looking forward to reading this other version. So thank you so much for mentioning that too. I also want to ask you, Teresa, as authors, we all have different ways of reacting to feedbacks and criticism of our works. I'm curious to know your opinion about criticism. How do you react to negative criticism of your book if you've ever had one in time past?
Well, honestly, I haven't yet had negative criticism on the book. To me, the most negative criticism is that if someone has not, if if they purchased a book but really haven't read the book,
Mm,
then it's just a shelver. It's on the shelf. But if they haven't read the book, they don't know what's in the book.
absolutely.
I would actually welcome, even if it's negative feedback. No one wants to hear negativity, but even if it's negative feedback, then I would know what I would need to do better.
Mm,
I would need to understand from their point of view why it's not so good for them, or some things may remind people of things they don't want to be reminded of.
mm,
But any feedback to me is good feedback. If people give reviews for your book, it's
mm,
at least letting other readers know what to expect. And if there is a negative review, then I have to look at that and say, okay, well, how could I make it better? Now I can't say they don't have the right to say that, because everybody has their own mind.
yeah,
So you don't know what they see or what they don't see or what they may have missed.
absolutely.
So we just have to accept it all with a grain of salt.
Yeah, I love your take on criticism. They're quite didactic and very educative. Thank you so much for mentioning that. I'm also curious, Teresa, to know if you experienced any challenges while writing your book. If there is any, could you share with us what challenge it is and how you ultimately overcame it?
Yes, the challenges were procrastination for one.
Mm,
Putting off um, what God told me to do. When I started pulling everything together and writing and sharing with people, and folks really made me feel like, wow, you have a gift there. I didn't realize my own gift until I just kept doing it, that, wow, this really is a gift.
mm,
And just procrastinating, pulling literary work together, to get out there and make the book happen, make the actual product happen. The other thing was thinking about, wow, am I sharing too much?
mm,
Am I saying too much? You know, um, every my what I really wanted to show folks is that life is not peaches and cream. You know, every poem is not Mary Had a Little Lamb,
mm,
and nice and sweet, and you
mm.
know, um,
Yeah,
dainty. Some things about life, you may not know how to share it or portray
absolutely.
it,
Yeah,
but sometimes people need to know the real truth.
yeah.
So, what I was sharing was, it would make me go back and think, it's like, wow, should I have said that? And
Mm,
then, once the finished product was done, when I read the book, I really went through some emotion because um, I don't know if you recall the character Urkel. He would say, "Did I do that?" And it would make me think. I had to realize I really did do that. I
wow,
really did go through those things. I
wow.
really did experience the addictions and the relationship issues
Mm,
and the trust issues and the low self-esteem and going from not really knowing Christ at all. Or let me just say this. In the beginning, some of us know Christ as a novelty or know Jesus as a novelty, but we don't
mm,
really know him.
mm.
It's like knowing who your father is, but not knowing your father,
Oh, wow,
if that makes sense,
wow. Mm,
you know.
that's it.
So yeah, so it's that was one of the major challenges, and then the other challenge, as I explained before, is just being able to trust a publisher and actually get my feet out there in the water and allowing someone else to help me with my work. Sometimes you don't want anybody else to come in and fiddle around with what you're doing. It's your baby. You want it
Mm,
to be the way you want it
that's
to be.
right.
You
Yeah,
know, so so you do have to allow some trust when you're dealing with someone who is also publishing your work. So those I would say will be some of the challenges. The other challenge is just trying to determine how to promote the book,
yeah.
once it's created, how to get it out there, how to get people to see it or recognize it,
Yeah.
because that's not our skill. There's some people out there who they're skilled at doing that, helping you promote, helping you get your work out there.
Absolutely.
You can write and create a masterpiece,
Yeah.
but no one sees it. All you have is a masterpiece in your hand, is not in anyone else's hand.
Mm, that's true. Wow, I love your answers to this question. And it's quite great and nice to hear your challenges and how you ultimately overcame them. Thank you for sharing that. Also, apart from seed, trees, branches, and leaf, and apart from from the root to the fruit, do you have any other works you've altered or you're currently working on?
Well, I'm currently working on. I have. I want to say three and a possible. That's a card terminology in spades.
Oh, wow.
I have three books that I have formats for them,
Wow.
and then another one that prayerfully myself and my husband are going to be doing together. So
Oh, wow.
it's interesting because it's like when God gives you something, it's like, wow, I have all these downloads and I want to work on this today. I want to work on that one today. I want to work on this. And then let's not forget that that's what I had. We had a conversation the other night. It's like, let's not forget the book that we said we were going to be doing.
Yeah.
So, those things are in the works. Then you want to look for guidance, ask the Lord, okay, what should I put out there first? Because in all things, one thing that I do want to do, I love to entertain and give people a happy piece, but also is to educate them,
Mm,
and in every story, just giving God the glory. So, you know, regardless what the story is, whether it's about real life or even if it's about a fictional work, well,
yeah.
God is in everything. So he can be in everything. So, I'm looking forward to creating. I have one novel that I'm working on. I won't say
Oh,
too much about it, but it's a lot of realness in it because it addresses issues that sometimes we don't want to talk about, including domestic violence
mm,
and just sharing. A lot of people are silent about these topics. They
yeah.
don't speak up, and
Absolutely.
while we wear faces that don't show anything on the surface, people are dealing with stuff on the inside, at
Mm,
home, behind closed doors. And so at some point, there also has to be a resolution of, how to either resolve it or get away from it, or at
mm,
least reach out to everybody is alive and no one is hurt.
mm.
So, yeah, those are some of the things that I'm working on now.
Yeah. That's great. That's quite fantastic. Great to know about that. And hopefully, when those ones are out, it will be great to have you back on P English Literature to talk about that. Now, I also want to ask you, Teresa, could you tell us what publishing is like for a published author like yourself? What are the challenges you've encountered in terms of marketing your books, and what are the mediums you've utilized so far in promoting your books?
Well, the one thing sure that I'm with is that they actually get the books any different line and overseas, and then there's also the ebooks as well. So a lot of the names that we all know and hear, Amazon.com, Walmart, Target, Barnes and Nobles. The books are there and can be ordered online, but there's also a host of other. Google my name, you'll be able to bring up a list where they'll show you that the book is. So not just one venue. Like many people, they may publish and their book is on Amazon.com, and that's great. But these books are not just on Amazon.com. So there's more than one place. So if you go to one place and they tell you we're sold out or we don't have any more right now, you can also check for some of the other venues that they will have the book.
Yeah.
Um, the one thing that I did learn, though, that I'm happy to have met some of the people that I have in this walk is that when you reach out to people who are interested in your poetry and they start reading and you find out they have, I started partaking in that and it's helped to have my book seen by many different followers and viewers. I'm not saying that each and every person has purchased it, but if you look and see that your information is posted and
Mm,
there's 700 followers that's looking at that information, that's
yeah.
exciting to me. You
Absolutely.
know, getting it out there to people who can help your information be seen. If people are interested, then they'll go forth and pursue it.
Yeah, that's great. And at this point, Teresa, I would love you to show the book to the camera. I don't know if you have a copy there with you that you love
Yes,
to
I
show
do.
the camera. Wow, this
This
seeds,
is,
tree, branches, and leaf by Teresa Pearsall.
yes.
That's beautiful. And I love the cover.
And here's the back, which that's
Oh, wow.
fun. And also, the artwork for both of my books is actually done by my niece. She's an artist. She goes by the name of Steady Changing. And I was happy to solicit her for the artwork
Oh,
because I
wow.
know she's a very good artist.
That's
And
great.
when I gave her my idea of what I wanted for the book, she did it.
That's great.
She gave me what I make the book look appealing for people to be interested. Now, this is she did the artwork for that one as well.
From the root to
The
the fruit.
fruits becoming a tree of righteousness,
Oh,
and that's the young lady sitting under the tree picking up the fruit
yeah.
that's dropped. But in each one is the glory of God. Yes, I'm very happy with the covers, and you know, I think I'll keep her
Yeah.
as the artist.
That's great.
Um,
And I wouldn't know if you would love to recite one poem for us to probably have a look and have a text of your work. Don't know if you'd love to recite a poem or two.
yeah,
Would
sure,
you?
yeah, sure.
Yeah.
Okay. So I wasn't quite sure what you might want to hear.
Anyone
Um,
you prefer, love to recite.
okay. All right. So what I'll do is this one is from Seeds, Trees, Branches, and Leaves,
Okay.
and it's actually titled "I'm Not Who I Used to Be." Okay. So years ago, when I was me, it wasn't for the world to see. The wild and sometimes hidden being, most actions a forbidden scene. Well, as I grew, I learned not love of other sins I'm not proud of. My world was me under a glove.
Hmm.
The glove, a mask to cover up. The sins I knew, they were not rare, yet some sins caused me not to care. I lived two worlds, which was not fair.
Hmm.
I never let you meet me there. A
Wow.
time of hurt and secret reigns, and all for love I did not gain. A cushion softening the pain. I choose another road, insane. Of many things I was ashamed, but I would pay a price for fame. I reckon others knew my game. I wish they didn't know my name.
Wow.
But God is good, and what you see is not the one I used to be. I'm no longer ashamed of me.
Hmm.
I've changed, thank God, and now I'm free. I now can say, when of my past, I'm glad my era did not last. I had a ball and had a blast, but slowly I was dying fast.
Hmm.
My life has changed because of God. The raunchy road no longer tried. He said to me, I will provide if you reveal the God inside. No longer do I live to die. I die to live and prophesy. My past is now world gone by,
Wow.
and Jesus is the name I cry. I've been reborn. It shows in me. I'll not turn back. From me, I'm free. I'm not the one I used to be. It's me for God and God for me.
Wow. Thank you so much for this amazing recitation. That's just one of the things I love about your works. They're very deep, philosophical, they're quite profound and thought provoking. And that's more like a testimony of someone who is changing from his or her self to a new man. So, for viewers who would love to get a copy of Teresa Pearsall's book, I left a link in the description part of this interview to our author page on Amazon, on Barnes& and Noble, and on other platform where you can get a copy directly on Amazon. So thank you so much, Teresa, for accepting the invitation to be featured on P English Literature. It's a pleasure having you on the show.
It's been a pleasure to be here. Also, my website is www.treepearsstoetries.com.
Yeah.
That's www.treepearsstoetries.com.
Yeah. Thank you so much. It's quite a pleasure.